Welcome to the Harmony in a Hurry podcast. We are Caroline and Anna, mindfulness enthusiasts, exploring ways to weave a little bit of mindfulness into our busy routine. Today we are talking with Helene Verhage. Helene is the founder of the From Thinking to Being method. She specializes in offering ambitious professionals a transformational mental reset. Working as a holistic health practitioner and mentor with a PhD in science, Helene guides intellect-driven individuals to shift from working and living in their minds to authentic and impactful self-leadership. And just a heads up for those of you watching the video, we seem to have had some bad connection and the video is not the greatest, but we hope you can disregard the technical issues on this one and focus on Helene's important message. Thank you so much.
So thanks, Helene, for joining our podcast, Harmony in a Hurry. We're very happy to have you here today. And
thank you so much for having me.
And one of the questions that we usually start our podcast with is, what does mindfulness mean to you?
For me, it's really being in peace with myself. Like being aligned, close to myself, feeling what there is, not being disturbed, like not taking out of my own center because of everything that is going on around us in the world with relationships, etc. Just be at peace with what there is in myself.
Mm-hmm. And how did you come into practicing mindfulness? Because you come from a scientific background. So how does someone that is taught to learn or think very logical come into mindfulness?
Yeah, just tell me how much I should expand on this, but probably the story started 6 years ago when I was back then a scientist with a PhD, very rational person. And there was this one spring day in April 2018 when I met my half brother. And I was a very rational scientist and he was a very intuitive spiritual guy. And basically, a long story short, that opened my eyes that there are different ways of living, not only overworking, overthinking, over-rationalizing, but also other ways of looking at life. And it also made me realize that my mind had become a prison. While it once was a big asset, because I have a PhD, worked in academia, had a permanent position, so it brought me a lot, but it also kept me as a prison in my daily life. And then I started exploring different ways of looking at the world, but also living and trying just many different things to see how I could incorporate being more mindful in my own life.
Mm-hmm. When you say your mind had become a prison, what do you mean exactly?
I expected, because that was the way I was living, I expected my mind always to have the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I was going through so much after that meeting that my mind didn't have the answers anymore. I started to realize that I was actually very sensitive to energies. And as a scientific person, I mean, I only believed back then in the tangible things. I mean, the table, the chair, the lamp, these were the things I could see. So that was what I believed in. And my mind couldn't grasp that I started feeling things that I could not explain. So that basically threw me off guard, and my mind didn't have the answers for what was going on. So the prison was that my mind didn't have the answers. That's one part. But the other part was that it had all these beliefs, like it should be like this and it should be like that. And this is what your parents taught you. And this is how education taught you. All like these boxes where I tried to fit in because my mind said, okay, this makes sense because everyone does it like this. But it didn't make sense anymore after that meeting because I needed to explore different ways to like be almost rebuilding myself. That's how it all started.
That's super interesting. And So you now work with people that overthink. And how do you help them? What is it that you actually do for them or with them?
Yeah, over the last few years, I discovered more and more my own abilities to work with people. And it's actually quite funny because 30 years ago, I started studying with the idea I do not want to work with people. And now I switched that completely. I discovered my own ability to use energy, to sense energy. I mean, sense energies from places, from people. And I discovered that my body had the ability to transmute energy. So when I work with people, my body physically senses the energy where it is stuck. And if people are open, and I usually only sense it when they are open, we start into this connection where I help them to transmute energy. And it's quite difficult to explain, but just my presence helps them to heal trauma. And I don't like the word healing because it has a different connotation, but it helps people to go to the next level in their own being, whether it's beliefs, which I do with like more mirroring, giving them reflections, showing them, hey, this is going on, this is what I see is going on. But more importantly is the power of the energetic work. It's really transforming energies. Just as an example, I had a recent guest, a private retreat guest. He's a lawyer. And I just wanted to let him experience the difference. In the morning, we talked for 2.5 hours. I usually don't do talking sessions. I let him experience 2.5 hours talking, didn't get us nowhere. And then I said, okay, now we're going to break this. We're going to do something different, and let him lay down. And I did energy work on him, or with him, basically. I don't do anything on you, with him. And 20 minutes later, he felt so much lighter. It was such an enormous relief because he was releasing, he was letting go of things because I supported the energies that were stuck in his system, whether it was emotional, mental, physical. But he felt such a relief and so much lighter. And that is what people usually experience if they work with me. They get clarity. It's also like insights are coming. They're like paradigm shifts. These release of brain fog. These are the words I often get back when I work with them.
That's fantastic. Caroline, that's really up your alley.
Yeah, because I'm an energy healer as well. So that just makes, complete sense. That's what I was just thinking about. Yeah.
I find it very interesting that you came from a very regimented way of thinking to just meeting the right person, which in this case is your half brother, opening completely up to a different paradigm of thinking about what is real, what is possible, and how things work, really.
Yeah, it was a roller coaster. I mean, coming from a world where only the tangible was real, and at least that's how I always experienced it with my back then partner, in my relationships with friends. I mean, I was a very pragmatic girl, down to earth, and I'm still very down to earth. But there was just no choice. I had to explore different avenues, and it opened up so much because I was willing to go there. And I realized that everything I've done till that time served me, but it would never make me happy. Though I needed to explore this different avenue, and it was a big roller coaster, honestly, because I had no idea what I was jumping into. I was not even aware that I was jumping into it, but apparently it was as it needed to be. And then at some point you start realizing, and of course that took for me also a couple of years, you start realizing how much power we have to transform our lives and go through all the layers of releasing all the limiting beliefs there it starts with, but then it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, all the collective programations, I sometimes call them. So many people need this wake-up call. And for me, it was a happy wake-up call. Some people have like burnouts or other like big disasters, accidents, and the whole thing. But nevertheless, the impact was so huge that I'm still happy I just jumped and came out on the other end. But it was intense. I have to admit that.
And so for the people that work with you, apart from, say, for example, shifting the energy, do you help them with starting to become more, I guess, sensitive to those energies as well?
Yeah. One of the I think probably 95% of the people who work with me are high sensitive persons, which makes sense in a way. Some of them realize it, others don't. And yes, I help them navigate with that. So it's really working at all the levels. And one other thing, usually my private retreat guests at least have in common is that they have done personal development, healing themselves. They really are almost ready to step in their like power to bring something new in the world. They are all very powerful people. I mean, we all are, but they are just like unlocking themselves in that final aspect. I really help them remember who they are. And that's like with the energy work, right? We don't do anything. That's how I feel it. I don't do anything with you. I like open the space energetically so that you can transform, you can transmute, and you can remember the power you have within. Yeah, if that was an answer to your question.
Yes, and we had actually recently someone else that does meditation and does yoga, and she also looks at mindfulness as remembering who we are, remembering ourselves in a way, and you kind of come to the same concept as well from a different perspective.
Yeah, I think and mindfulness is of course a word that can have many different meanings for people. I mean, if you're going to work at 8, stop at 7, and only continue the rat race, mindfulness might be just one moment of like being able to relax, no overthinking, and just being with whatever you love to do. I mean, that might be a first part of mindfulness, but for me, it's much more. That's where it started 6 years ago for me. But for now, it's like, yeah, what you said, like really remembering who you are, being in peace with who you are, which is as negative sides, negative, that's a label. But I mean, we all have our shadow sides, and not every day is fun. But being in, without going into the drama stories, don't attach to the stories, because the stories make a big part of the pain. If you can just be present with what there is, it's much easier to navigate. Don't reject it and don't accept it. Just be in your own alignment. Be present with what there is, and yeah, connecting with yourself, reconnecting.
So, Helen, if you had someone that came to you and said, I want to explore a little bit more this being present and these sensing energies, what would you say? Okay, this is where you start. Where would you point them to?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends a bit on where they are. I always trust that the right people come to me. I mean, that there is this energetic connection that I start exploring from there. If people are really, really on the beginning of their journey, I have a 9-minute audio which helps them like emerging already in this energetic field. So they can start exploring there. That's a free audio which you can just request from my website and start there. I realized in my own journey, it all started with a choice. Like, hey, this is not acceptable anymore for me in my life. I don't want this. I want to change. I don't know how. My mind is not giving me answers anymore, but I want something else. So I need to break a pattern. And that is the very first step also in my teachings. From there, you start exploring and opening yourself up to the possibilities. So opening up to different perspectives. You start exploring your awareness. And that is how, I mean, it's like looking for me to the outside world. What does this reflect? My inside is reflected by the outside world. So if I see things happening around me, I always reflect back to me. What does this want to say to me? And from there, I raise my awareness. With that awareness, I come to my core principle with being present, I mean, if an unpleasant situation or a realization that I did something, I should have done something different, the realization that I just can now be present with this feeling, with this story, with whatever happens. And with the presence, I reconnect with my own energy, because that will help then the transformation of the energy, and it kind of dissolves by itself. And that sounds probably too easy if you want to have your mind on board. That's why I take this 9-step roadmap. But this brings you in the end in the eye of the storm, because then you're aligned with yourself and you can see the outside world. Like whatever storm there is, you can just navigate from your own alignment. So yeah, the basic mindfulness practice for me is be present with you. And I help people with that one. I mean, start with that 9-minute audio and I give it now in workshops. I give every week workshop online where I let people experience that state of mind, that being present. And we do it for 7 minutes. And I have unanimously people saying like, I feel so much more relaxed. I feel so calm. I feel so peaceful. Where did the energy go that was keeping me busy 5 minutes ago? So it's a really powerful practice. It's really simple because it's about not interfering. It's about stepping out of your own way. That's what I want to say. It's a really powerful practice, but it's basically so simple that our mind cannot grasp it. It goes beyond the mind because our mind wants to keep on holding to something because we're so used to it. But that's not the way it works anymore. And this is for me like the craziest contrast between how I was holding on to all these things in my mind, because I thought it gave me control, but it was just unhealthy control. So now I find myself back in healthy control because I can use situations to navigate. I can trust, I can be present with what there is. And that is such a powerful, peaceful feeling that ties back to what is mindfulness. For me, that is mindfulness, being in peace with myself. It's all present in my 9-step roadmap, which is really bringing the mind on board to this whole process. And in my 9-step roadmap, I have 3 foundational steps, 3 transformational steps, 3 integration steps, which helps you to shift from overthinking to more mindful, empowered, aligned being.
So obviously you've experienced amazing benefits in your personal life. How about with relationships with friends or family? How have they changed by being mindful?
Everything, I mean, since this meeting with my brother, everything, my whole life has completely changed. I now choose what I feel that is good for me. And I dare to trust that feeling when I feel that people are not like what we both need in that particular time and space. I have the courage to say, no, this is not for now. And I mean, in the physical reality, I have much less friends because I'm much more discerning, like who is right for me right now to be in my intimate field. About intimate relationships, I had back then a partner for 17 years. And we ended that relationship because we both were very rational persons, intellect-driven persons, but then I took another road and, well, we split up in a very, very good way. But being alone, having no intimate relationship, actually also created the opportunity to develop myself more and more, because I didn't feel like I have to adjust or navigate that space. It made it more easy to develop myself and to grow and to heal, and just being with myself was for me very powerful. Yeah, and I'm more picky on the persons who I really allow in my inner circle. I'm more myself. Also with family, I dare to speak up like, okay, this is who I am. And no judgment. Everyone has their own path. You have your own life. I respect you. I honor you. But this is me. take it or leave it. And actually, people take it because I'm honest, and not in a harsh way, but they feel that it is coming from my truth and that is not for hurting them. So a lot has changed. But for me, it feels much more pure. And pureness, is one thing, one big pillar I rely on.
So more in alignment with yourself.
That's beautiful. And is there anything else that you feel would help people, or anything else that you want to touch on?
I don't know for what reason, but yesterday I was listening to a podcast where people were referring to a frog in a pond. And this frog has no idea that there is an ocean. So they are in this pond. It's limited. That they don't have any idea. And people start showing them that there is an ocean. Other people try to transfer you from the pond to the ocean. Once you're in this ocean, you think you're free because you have much more space as a frog. But even there, this ocean is limited. So I would even encourage people to think beyond that. I think we are infinite beings. We have infinite energy and connections. And the more we can expand ourselves and allow this bigger picture to evolve, the more peace of mind you get. Because you trust and you follow your own intuition, that everything is for your own good. It's not struggling anymore. I really want to help people to see and to feel that it's not, you're not alone. Everything is connected and you're always surrounded with the right people. You find the right people on your path for your support. Being in this infinite space, everything is connected. That is giving you such a powerful connection with all there is. And I really wanna encourage people to explore that. Everyone in their own way, their own path, their own steps, but really remembering that is who you are. I think that is what I wanted to add here.
That is beautiful. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your time, Helene. We really appreciate having you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here. And I would love to connect with people who resonate with my approach, my story. And like I said during this interview, it always starts with the connection.
And that's it for us for today. As always, check the show notes to connect with Helene and her offerings and find out more about her. And of course, you can find out more about Caroline and myself in the show notes as well. Please share this episode to help us create more mindful conversations. Thank you.